this is just our attempt. We're starting these skills workshops now. So there's hopefully, I mean, unless there's a big event, there should be something every day at 11, Monday through Thursday. And basically we have 8 workshops and it's going to rotate every 2 weeks. So today we're talking about working with buyers. Crystal, I know that you have just kind of started talking to someone who just talked to a lender, and that would be, once they're kind of ready, would be your first buyer. Bertina, have you worked with any buyers, or are you currently like nurturing some?
I currently have one now.
Great, that's wonderful. What part of the process are you in with them right now, Bertina?
Well, we've been searching houses. She found a couple that she is very interested in, and I'm actually waiting for her to get back to me today on one that she's considering putting a contract on.
That's fantastic. So you've gone and looked at some then?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful, great. So some of this will be a little bit of a review, I think, even for both of you, but good practice. We can kind of talk through kind of the process, right? But before we do that, is there anything specific that either of you want to make sure that I definitely hit while we have this, 45 minutes together?
No, I don't.
I don't know anything.
That's not true. It's not true, Crystal. All right, well,
I only worked on the listing side, so I'm like, well, I know from this side of it what I experienced from the buyer side, but I've not had to do any of that myself. And I actually have like 2 or 3 people that I'm nurturing that have talked to a lender, and they're just not quite ready yet. So I'll just continue nurturing them, and hopefully they'll be ready soon. But yeah.
Good. I understand that you've been gone through the process yet, but this is gonna sound like you don't know nothing, because I know you went through Ignite, so I know you know and learned a lot from there. You've also been doing Glover U, so I know that you know some things. You just don't feel like you know as much.
Experience-wise, I've not experienced anything.
All right, that's okay. It's all right. Just a reminder, other than me buying a house, I haven't worked with a buyer. Well, that's not true. I did some showings with Melissa, but that's not quite the same thing. But anyway, all right. So we always, like working with buyers, sometimes you luck out and you catch them right as they're ready and they're like, yeah, I was actually thinking about buying and I want to move in 3 months. Lots of times there's a lot of nurturing that goes on, right? You might talk to someone that like, yes, it's in their future, it's a goal, but they want to save money up for that down payment first, all that kind of stuff. But I like to talk about a few different things. When you're first talking to a buyer that says they're ready, you might have heard this before, because I know we've talked about it before, but we talk about an acronym called MCAT. So MCAT, as a way to start that conversation when they say they're ready and get some of the important information, right? So that M is motivation. We talk about that a lot, right? Finding out why is it that they want to move. Moving is sometimes a frustrating process. It's packing up all your stuff. Like, why do they want to go through this? So is it that they need a bigger house, a smaller house? Do they want to move closer to work? Is it that they want to stop renting and put money and equity into a house that they can actually build equity in? Is it that they want a bigger kitchen or a backyard for their dog? There's a lot of different reasons. And so with that motivation, we know, of course, we need to dig in. If they just say, oh, I'm looking to get a bigger house. Okay, why? What will having a bigger house do for you? Right? Kind of digging in and finding out, like, what are those things that are really going to motivate them through this process? Because as I'm sure it's especially recently, it could be a long process for a buyer sometimes, right? We're coming out of a market where buyers were putting multiple offers in over and over again, and weren't getting it, and we're losing out to other buyers, and it was a very competitive for those buyers. And so sometimes the buyers can start to lose that momentum, be frustrated by that, and that can happen in this market too. They're frustrated with rates, or they're frustrated with you know, they haven't seen the house that they want yet, or haven't been able to find the one that has everything, that kind of thing. Knowing what their motivation is going to help you keep them going. So if they have put in a couple offers and they haven't been accepted, and they're starting to go, I don't know, maybe we should just wait till spring, do more inventory and, you know, whatever. Being able to call upon their motivation and say, you know, you told me that, you know, it was really important that you got into a bigger house because you have a kid on the way and you have 2 dogs and it's too crowded at your current place, you know, and just kind of reminding them of that and saying, do you want to keep looking for that and trying to find that? Like, if I can find that, do you want to put an offer in sooner? Or even if I found a place, do you still want to wait till the spring? And just kind of, you know, gauging that and reminding them and using their own words. It's hard for them to ignore and discount their own words, right? So having that motivation can kind of help keep them motivated, right? For like why they want to go through this process when things start to get frustrating. For Tina, just because I'm curious, you're working with a buyer right now. What's their motivation? Why are they looking to move?
Well, my buyer, she travels a lot, and she's interested in, well, in all her travels, she loves Baltimore City.
Mhm.
And she's in and out, like she's always taking courses, college courses, and one of her interests in the home that she has now is really close to Morgan State University. So, and it's been a lot of houses that are on the market, right, you know, really close to Morgan. So she's kind of excited right now on getting a home, you know, around that area. And I mean, I guess that's just her motivation right now is she's just loves Baltimore City.
Cool. And so she loves Baltimore City, and so she wants to, it sounds like, have a home and put down roots, and that's great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. All right, so we're talking about this acronym MCAT. The C, the next thing you're going to talk about when you find that you have a motivated buyer is the criteria. This is the thing that you probably always think of, right? This is where you say, like, what are you looking for in your next home? So the criteria that they're going to be looking for. That's going to be how many bedrooms ideally that they want, right? Bathrooms. Do they want a big backyard? Do they want no backyard? Because when I was looking, it was like, I want a small yard, or I want one that the HOA is going to mow because I don't want to do that. So knowing like what your client wants is important because it can be different ends of the spectrum, right? Or are they looking for a newer kitchen or an upgraded kitchen? Do they want a finished basement, or doesn't that matter? Like knowing what criteria or things they're looking for. And it might be that they have a couple wants, but there's some things that they definitely need. You know, if they have 2 kids, a boy and a girl, and they don't want them to share a bedroom, chances are they're going to say we need at least 3 bedrooms, and showing them a 2-bedroom, probably not something that they are willing to go with. I mean, I'm making assumptions, but it depends on your client, and knowing what that criteria is and what's important to them is part of our job, right? So finding out what that criteria is for the new house that they want to get into, knowing what's a must-have and what's a want, and kind of being able to kind of help them find things that meet those expectations. The A is for ability, and that means financial ability. So when you're working with a buyer and they say they're ready, you want to ask them if they've worked with a lender yet. Have they talked to a lender? If the answer is yes, great. Who are you working with? Who have you talked to? Have you gone through the pre-approval process? Do you have like a letter? Do you know like what they're saying you can afford? If they haven't, kind of setting them up and giving them some suggestions, you know, ask them if they have somebody they want to use, or if they'd like to talk to one of, you know, your preferred lenders. And that could be primary or DML who are here in the office, or if you have someone else that you want to work with, that's great too. But being able to kind of talk through what that process is going to be, I think sometimes hearing lender makes it real, right? Makes it a little scary, makes them think, oh my gosh, I have to pull all of my tax records for the last 3 years. I have to, you know, pull pay stubs. Like the first conversation is not going to be that. And so letting them know that the first conversation is going to be providing them some numbers, letting them know, you know, like about how much money is in your bank account and how much savings, how much do you want to put towards a down payment, how much do you make, or the other, or anyone who's going to be purchasing the home, to get an idea of numbers. It should be a 15 to 20-minute conversation. So being able to set up the lender in a way that takes away some of that uncertainty or that apprehension, because they don't want to have an hour-long conversation and have to dig up all this paperwork. Being able to kind of let them know that that first conversation won't involve all of that can make it easier for them to pick up the phone when the lender calls, right? And there's a couple different ways you can set up the lender. You know, you can obviously provide all that information in an email, but really if you can let the lender know so the lender can reach out to your client, that is going to make it easier. So your client's not going to have to find the time or motivation themselves to call. You know, talking to your client and saying, can I have, you know, my preferred lender at Primary Dan give you a call later? And, you know, see what they say. You know, they'll try to call, you know, and kind of say like, they'll, you know, I still have to talk to him, but he'll probably be able to call you between, you know, 5 and 7 or something like that. Is that okay? And then you could reach out to Dan or whoever and kind of say, hey, could you call this person between 5 and 7 to talk about and get them pre-approved? I know there are some agents that will just do a group text. And so they'll send a text to their client and to whoever the lender is and kind of do that introduction through a text message. So that way your client then also has their number right away, and then the lender can follow up and have that conversation and kind of get the ball rolling on that pre-approval. This gives you, you know, the lender's important, right? This gives you an idea of not just do they have the ability to buy a house in general, but what's the price point? Because they might say, oh, I'm comfortable with this price point, but if their numbers don't show that they can afford that price point, you've now potentially shown them homes that they've fallen in love with and can't afford. And that doesn't work for you and it doesn't work for them, right? So knowing what they can do and setting up and working with that lender is really important. So that way you can show them homes in their range. Also, it gives them an idea of what their monthly payment's going to be, because they might say, oh, you're pre-approved up to 300,000, but then they realize what that monthly payment is. And they say, you know what, given my budget, that's a little high for me. What number should we stick to if I want to stick with a payment of this, right? And can kind of work backwards. So that's where a lender can be really helpful in this process. All right, and then the final letter of MCAT, the T, that's for timeline. You know, knowing when they're ready. So are they ready? Would they move tomorrow if they could? Are they thinking a year from now? Are they thinking 6 months from now? Does it have to be after a new job starts or after the school year? Just kind of having that clarification of like, when do they want to move or when do they need to move? If it's something very strict, like needing to move for a new job or something like that, knowing what that is and why that's important. And if there's any flexibility or not is really helpful for you to know as you're starting the process. Because if it's a quicker turnaround and it's a must move by a certain date, there might need to be some concessions. They may not be able to, you know, keep looking at houses to find the perfect one, versus if they're like, nah, we're renting, we can get out of it whenever, you know, we really want to find this, this, and this, they could potentially take longer if they want to find, you know, that perfect house, whatever it is. All right, so makes sense. Any questions about MCAT